Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your patience in waiting for a live streaming. The first thing I'm going to get you all to do is type yes if you can hear me okay, so that I know I am not talking to myself. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Thank you. I'll just wait a second. There's a little bit of a delay. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, sweet. Okay, we had quite a time in Crete. It was a beautiful, beautiful gathering. We had 20 or so amazing guests, physical guests. We had our non-physical guests as well. And I want to thank all of you that came. And I have been given instructions by Carol to let you know what the status of our England retreat is in terms of booking. It's about 5 weeks away. We have available 1 day pass for the 25th of July, 1 spot for a man in a shared room, 1 spot for a female in a shared room, and 2 private rooms. And those are queen size rooms, the private rooms. So there you go. That's my little bit of business there. We are doing the English retreat from July 22nd to 26th, and it's in Torquay, England. So it's a lovely location near the beach, and we've rented a lovely hotel for you to come and enjoy. So if you feel moved, there are still some spaces. Okay, let me just get a little organized here. It takes me about a week to fully come back into my life here, what with the jet lag and channeling for the week and travel. It's a bit of a recovery process, not in a bad way. I just see that I'm not very efficient. So forgive me if I make any mistakes here. So let's see what Jesus has to say as his introductory commentary this morning. See you in a bit. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And we are very pleased that you are here with us. We are very pleased that you make this dedication every couple of weeks to come and join with your soul family. Your work here is important work. Your forgiveness practice is important to the global frequency. And we mention this often, but we do want to remind you so that you feel that the forgiveness work that you do throughout your day, the lessons that you read and study throughout the day, and the joys that you bring into your own life throughout the day are affecting more than you know. This Newtonian science that you have been raised on is that you are an individual and you can only vote once every 4 years, and that's the only way that you are going to change anything, is a complete fabrication. That is not how the world works. You are all fantastic, powerful creators, and we want to address some of you that are feeling a little hard done by when you have negative experiences in your life, feeling that here you are doing all of this spiritual work, doing your lessons, doing your forgiveness practice, and still there are negatives in your life. Well, we want you to understand the depth and breadth of the process that you have taken yourselves into. You have, through many incarnations, even though they are simultaneous, you have through many incarnations been working on the same issues. When you get a past life reading, for example, you get perhaps you have a bad knee and you are limping around worrying about it and it's causing you some consternation, and you go to get a past life reading done and you find out that you were a soldier and you had an injury in your knee. You were shot in the knee perhaps, and you think, this is why I have a bad knee. No, it's not why you have a bad knee. You have a bad knee because in each incarnation there are the same blockages at play, and you are going through many different incarnations in an effort to give yourself the opportunity to work out those blockages. So what does a bad knee cause you to have? It causes you to have limited motion. And so you might have to develop coping strategies. You might have to ask for help occasionally. Perhaps your overly independent, isolating nature is what you are actually working on. Perhaps in the life as a soldier, you came home from war and you had to go into convalescence, and perhaps you had to get a walking stick, and perhaps there were many experiences that that particular thing brought you. And perhaps in this incarnation, it's bringing you a similar kind of experience. It is not the past causing the present. It is the blocks within your mind that are causing the same effect. So for those of you that are struggling with problems, we have a particular person in mind when we're speaking about this who has expressed some frustration with us for giving you a standard answer. This person is having issues in their garden with vermin or animals that are trying to eat his produce and destroying his creation, his lovely garden, which brings him sanity in what seems to be a very unloving world. The issue that is at play here is, what does this bring up in you? What does your problem, your current problem, bring up in you? Does it bring up your belief that you're always being victimized? Does it bring up your belief that nobody appreciates what you're doing? Does it bring up your belief that no matter how hard you work in this life, nothing ever goes your way? Does it bring up your fear of judgment by other people? What is it bringing up for you, this issue? Whatever the issue is, this particular person has a particular specific issue. And the frustration that they are having is feeling that the specific form of that issue is the problem. And they are somewhat frustrated that we tell you the form is not the problem. It is the effect of something beneath the form. So if you keep getting flat tires, it's got nothing to do with flat tires. It's got to do with you not being able to get with where you want to go. And you may have this belief, I never get where I want to be in life. I'd like to be successful, and I'm not there yet. I don't know how to get there. So I keep feeling like I'm left behind. I'm not making any progress. Which one of you would think that that belief system would cause a flat tire? But it does, because it is in accord with that belief. So in terms of the garden, there are several approaches that we want to bring up. First of all, you must look at the plain old mechanics of gardening. Our dear one lives in a place where there are lots of marauding deer, vicious deer, who eat buds of flowers and love the most expensive of plants. Now, what the gardeners do here is they create elaborate fences to keep the deer out. That is the most logical and simple device, the mechanical device to keep a creature out of your garden. The other aspect of gardening that we would like you all to consider is that you live in very unnatural environments where you might have a 20 by 30 foot garden plot. And it is your pride and joy, but you live in a very, very unnatural environment. And so that 20 by 30 garden plot is completely dissociated from nature. And you as human beings are completely dissociated from nature. Yes, gardeners pay more attention than other people, but when you think about it, nature does not provide her abundance in 20 by 30 foot plots of land. That is not how she works. The abundance of nature is spread over many, many miles. So you might have blackberry bushes there that feed the birds. You might have a rowan tree here that feeds them at a different time of year. You might have rose hips that are then feeding them later on in the season. As humans, you are forcing yourself to garden in a very, very particular way, in a very, very unnatural form. And so when nature reasserts itself, which it is constantly trying to do, because Humans have interfered with nature. They are not working in accord with nature. They are blatantly out of accord with natural systems. Those natural systems are constantly going to be reasserting themselves, because that is the balance of nature, in contrast to the imbalanced way that you all live and you all at times garden. So that is one of the other aspects that is at play. It is not that you are necessarily doing something bad as a Course in Miracles student, but you are trying to force a system on nature, and nature is simply more powerful than you are. And you all know that when you see a hailstorm, for example. You may have planted your beautiful lilies and your big sunflowers, and a summer storm brings half-inch hail onto your garden and it is destroyed. What is the purpose of that? The purpose of that is to see how it affects you. The purpose of that is to see how you interpret it. The purpose of that is to get you to go inside and ask, why am I so devastated? What is it about this that is devastating me? The master is never devastated about anything. The master is in a place of acceptance. And that is what we would recommend for all of you who are having specific problems, whether it's a bad knee, problems in your marriage, problems in your garden. These are all separated, individuated examples of the same thing, not within different people, but within your life. If you have a problem here and a problem there, begin to ask yourself, is there a common frequency here? Am I trying to control things that do not want to be controlled, for example? Now, the gardener person may say, well, I don't really care about that. All I want to know is, how do I keep these pesky critters out of my garden? Well, you begin with the simple, logical, mechanical devices. Is it fenced properly? Are your garden beds healthy? All of these ordinary gardening things. Once that is taken care of and you see, well, they're digging under the fence. Okay, can I get up? Can I put my fence deeper? But all the while, the real spiritual work is, what is it bringing up in me? What am I saying? Am I saying, oh, this is the only thing that makes me happy, and even this doesn't work? This is the only place I find any peace, and even this is failing. If those are the kinds of thoughts that are coming up, then you have to look at that statement. This is the only place I feel rewarded. This is the only place I feel joy. This is the only place I feel relaxation. Then all the other parts of your life that you are trying to escape from are going to bleed into your garden. They simply have to, because your consciousness in the garden is the same consciousness that's creating problems outside the garden. And so, despite the fact that our standard go-to answer is not appreciated, you must look at where you are getting an energetic match elsewhere in your life. I'm frustrated in the garden. Where else am I frustrated? Let me look at my life and my experience as a holistic reflection of my consciousness. It does not matter if you like that principle or not. It does not matter if you agree with that principle or not. But that is the principle that you are all experiencing. So if you feel shame in one part of your life, you are going to get frequency matches manifesting in different parts of your life. So you must view yourself as a holistic being. The problems with your marriage, the problems with your body, the problems with your garden, the problems with your job, these are all aspects of a particular part of your own consciousness that needs to be worked on. So if you feel that you are being put upon, being victimized by something in your garden, they are spoiling your fun. Do you ever spoil anybody else's fun? You can look at it as a frequency match, and you can also turn it around and say, do I ever impinge myself upon somebody else's joy? Do I ever act like a wet blanket on somebody else's passion. These are the two ways that you can work with it. And we understand that this being wants to be given a specific recipe, actions each day, things to say, things to do that are going to specifically address that problem. But that problem is not a specific problem. It is one of many physical manifestations of the same frequency in your life. So we want you all to take note about your particular problem. Where am I thinking other thoughts like this? Where am I feeling other feelings like this? So in terms of a practice, the practice is, do not seek to have joy in only one part of your life. Seek to make as much of your life as fun as possible. So if you are only using gardening, for example, to give you solace in an unfriendly world, bring an action into the unfriendly world. So, for example, if you are going to the grocery store and you have to buy groceries and you feel yourself trudging into the grocery store, resenting it, wishing you didn't have to do this, and our wise words come into your mind, I'm meant to make this more fun. Okay, well, I'm going to buy 2 things in the grocery store that I've never bought before, and I'm going to try them out, whether it be a new fruit or a new kind of vinegar or whatever it is. And to make your shopping trip fun. Now, you would never think that making your shopping trip fun is going to change your gardening experience, but it will, because you are not acting as if the world is victimizing you or putting itself upon you. You are saying, every single thing I do, I am going to make more fun. Get your favorite music playing in your car. If you have to drive to work every day or you have to go on a trip, put your favorite songs on there and sing along with them and energize your body and be happy. This will change your gardening experience. If you're sitting down at dinner with your partner and they say something you don't agree with, instead of going into an argument, let it go by. This will help the gardening situation. You are holistic beings. You are emitting frequencies like this, and they are manifesting into forms all around you in 360 degrees into the future, even into the past. We won't go into that right now, but yes, you are manifesting yourself in a multifaceted, multidimensional way. So every time that you can bring more joy, every time that you can bring more forgiveness, every time that you can do something that is more loving, you will change your future. You will change everything in your life. Every cell in your body is going to be affected by that internal process. So one other thing that we would suggest to the person who is angry at the critters in his garden is to sit down and to try and communicate with them on a regular basis, not just once, but on a daily basis. Ask if they can tell him what they are looking for. And if they are looking for food, then feed them. If they are looking for nuts or seeds, put some food out for them and telepathically tell them that you have misunderstood the messaging system and you see that they are hungry and you would like to feed them. Give them something outside of your garden that is going to satisfy them, because they are only looking for something to eat. So why is this our introductory statement? It is our introductory statement because this is the kind of mental misinterpretation that happens with many of you. There is a belief that an intellectual idea is being hidden from you by us. Nothing is being hidden from you by us. We have disseminated all of the information that we can. A Course in Miracles holds everything within it that tells you how reality works. And it's given you the remedy for your distressing thoughts and ideas and beliefs. And that is what is there. Everything is laid out for you. We are not keeping any secrets from you. And in each of you, you have those issues that you are working on. We would also like you to be patient with yourselves. Yes, we know that we do talk about time ticking away, and that is problematic in one sense, in that you get anxious and the ego kicks up. But you can be very relaxed within any given day and yet still be working on your forgiveness practice. You can be seeking joy in everything you do, taking yourself to the lake, taking yourself to the beach instead of sitting on your computer or sitting in front of your TV, getting out in the garden while it's a beautiful summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and really, really, really getting what you can out of this incarnation that is so valuable. This incarnation, this generation is so valuable, because you are being given the opportunity to work through issues that have been bothering you for many incarnations. We have talked about this before. The end of a spiritual season is about ripening. We want you to see yourselves as almost ripened fruit. How can I become more ripened? You don't yell at an apple because it's not ripe yet. What do? You nurture it. You are gentle with it because you don't want it to fall off the tree too soon. You make sure that the trees are pruned around it so that the sun can get at it. Treat yourself as an almost ripe piece of fruit. That means you're nurturing, you're kind, and you are not screaming at that apple. You are saying, come on, baby, come on, baby. But there's nothing you can do to rush the process in that sense, but you can enhance the process by being loving, by being nurturing, by honoring that ripening fruit rather than neglecting it or being rough with it. So don't be rough with yourselves. Don't say that you're in the remedial class. Don't say that you're stupid because you're not getting it. You are getting it. You are all getting it. Otherwise, you would not be coming to these meetings. You would not be coming to these conversations. If you were not getting it, you would be so frustrated that you will walk away. And there are many people who have walked away from this communication, these communications. Why? Because they're very challenging. They are asking everything of you. They are asking you to give up the world you know. They are asking you to give up the habits you know. They are asking you to give up the judgments and the beliefs you have about reality that you know. Your mind is being completely and absolutely reworked, and it is not for the faint of heart. So we take our hats off for all of you. And for those of you that are pushing so hard towards awakening, we want you to relax more. We want you to float downstream a bit more. We want you to understand that when you are chomping at the bit of enlightenment, it's no different than chomping at the bit of gaining wealth or chomping at the bit of ambition. Open your heart to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Open your heart to nature. Open your heart to the knowing that you will be given all the information that you need. Open your heart to those beings in your life that you pick and poke at and have issues with. Open your heart to them and trust that you will be shown. Trust that you will be given the information. Trust. And if you have a problem, look at what it brings up in you. Does it bring up the eternally frustrated you? Then that is what you must look at, the fact that you're eternally frustrated. Does it bring up rage in you? Then look at where you are suppressing your anger, or look at where you are angry at other people and you're not revealing it to yourself. Go into yourself when you have an issue and say, what is this bringing up in me? Impatience, rage, frustration, sadness, guilt, shame, grief. Go inside and ask yourself, what is it bringing up in me? That is all any situation is for, that is causing you harm, causing you problems, we should say. We will return shortly. All right. Okay, let me have a little sip of my tea here. I guess I don't need to ask that question. Okay. Our first question. Do I or did I choose everything I experience? And how, for example, does that relate to other people's choices? In a previous live streaming, there was a talk about a plane crash and that people inside the plane choose to be in that plane. How does that work? Okay, that's our first question. Just keeping my eye on my battery life here. Okay. Do I or did I choose everything I experience, and how, for example, does that relate to other people's choices? In a previous live streaming, there was talk about a plane crash and that people inside that plane choose to be in that plane. How does that work? Okay, let's see what Ananda has to say. Oh, we're with you again, dear ones. And as usual, we thank you for joining us in this particular format, in this particular group. Much is being affected around the planet by this group, by your sharing, by your courage, by your talking about what you're doing. Some of you are getting quite brave. You are making videos. You are designing jobs. You are preparing to leave work that is unsatisfying. You are all being guided along the way. And we thank you for your diligence and your presence in this teaching, learning opportunity. So when beings come into this earth plane, there is much discussion before you come in. You choose your parents because they are going to give you a particular experience. You choose your body type because it is going to give you a particular experience. You choose your IQ because it's going to give you a particular experience. You choose the country and your wealth level because it's going to give you a particular experience that you, in concert with your guides and teachers, have deemed are valuable arenas in which you can play out this particular game. So what about death? Well, when you come into this experience, you are dealing with a consciousness that is in the in-between counseling stages of your incarnations, let's say. So you're not in a body when you design your life. You are in that eternal space of light and love where you are counseled and given opportunities to have more experiences. You are, however, forced, we will say, that is the appropriate word, forced to do the work that you need to do to release some of the ideas that you are holding on to. So you are at times encouraged to come into another physical incarnation. For some beings that have had too much trouble in this low frequency environment, they may opt to do other work. They may opt to do spiritual work elsewhere. But you must remember that when you are designing this life, your purpose in designing your life is consciousness evolution. Your purpose in life is to have unique experiences. Your purpose in designing this life is not to follow the mundane, simple, and the easy and the comfortable. It is to challenge and grow and expand. And so some beings, for example, who have had incredible physical prowess in some incarnations may choose to come in with less than perfect physiques so that they can have a new kind of experience. They might come in with a congenital defect of some kind that causes them to spend their life in a wheelchair with needing assistance. Now, for you in the egoic consciousness, you would never choose this. You would look at them and say, oh, that poor person, they are living a lesser life. No, they are having a different experience and they are learning something that they have not yet learned. And they are willing to go through that process because in the designing, when they were designing that blueprint, they could see the multiplicity of lives that were already being experienced. They can see that, oh, in this life and this life and this life, I really haven't had that experience. So let's bring this one into being so that I can have this experience. It is something that you may have noticed as a human being, that if you have been, for example, in an abusive marriage and you have overcome that, when you see somebody else in an abusive marriage, you tend not to be judgmental about it. You tend to be very compassionate about it because you understand what that person is going through because you have been through it yourself. This makes you more loving. And the same applies in the bigger arena, that if you have been a poor person and you have experienced extreme poverty and hunger, even though in this lifetime you may be a more wealthy person, you will have incredible compassion for poor people, whereas another person who has not had an incarnation as a poor person may say, oh, they're just lazy people and they don't want to work. I'm not going to help them out at all. But you, as a person who's had an experience in another incarnation as a poor person, may have incredible compassion, and you may set up a trust fund or a bursary of some kind, and you may be very willing to put your money to work to help those less fortunate. Why are people different? Some rich people are selfish and self-centered. Some rich people are very generous and philanthropic. It's because of the experiences they've had in other incarnations, generally speaking. And so this applies to your exit point as well. If you think about it, how dramatic a change to your society the 9/11 events were. And we're speaking about September 11th, 2001, when the Twin Towers came down and almost 4,000 people were killed. Thousands of people die every day, one at a time, and there is no effect on your society at all. In the pre-birth state, some beings will get together and say, let's all go out at the same time so that we can help humanity, help society, see something that they need to see, wake them up even. Sometimes it is a disaster that makes you wake up and hug your children because you think, wow, those people who went to that office that day didn't know that this was going to happen. I'm going to my office today. Perhaps I should pay attention to my family a bit more. Perhaps I'm unconsciously driving off without any true appreciation of the life and the abundance and the joy and the family that I have. That is sometimes what spirits will do. They will say, let's all get together and do a big old bang out exit point to get everybody to wake up for a few days. That is a good use of what's going to happen anyway. If you all know that you're going to leave on a certain day, that's one of your exit points, and we will go over one of your exit points. That's a leading statement. But you will actually agree to do certain things together so that it makes more impact. And that, of course, in the in-between state in which you are designing your blueprint for life, talking with your guides and teachers about what you can handle and what you can't handle and what subjects you'd like to work on and how you can bring up issues so that those subjects get dealt with and get brought up into your conscious mind. You must remember that when you design your life, you are actually putting things into your blueprint that you aren't that good at. So this is why sometimes it can seem very frustrating to you, because you have actually assigned yourself some of the most difficult topics for you. In other incarnations, you may have seen that you're not very good at this particular subject. And so in concert with your guides and teachers, you agree, yes, okay, well, I'll give it another go, but I'm really poor at this. How can we get my attention around this subject? And your guides and teachers may say, well, when you're 18, if you haven't even thought about this subject, we're going to bring a situation in when you're 18 that's going to plant the seed that this is a subject that you need to look at. Okay, you'll say, I'll sign off on that. And they'll say, well, and again at 30, if you haven't begun to really work on that subject, we're going to bring in another situation that's going to bring that subject up again for you, because you've always had trouble working with this particular aspect of the physical incarnation. So let's design another situation where it's going to bring that subject up, and you go, okay, well, yes, I guess if I haven't even started working on that particular problem by the time I'm 30, that's a good idea, because clearly it's not my favorite subject. And it will go through your life. And there may even come a point where they say, well, when you're 55, If you still haven't dealt with this subject or still haven't made progress with this subject, what shall we do? How shall we really get your attention? And remember, you're not in a physical body. You don't believe in death. You have your consciousness evolution as your main purpose. You may say, let's give me a heart attack. Maybe that will help. Maybe that will really wake me up from this issue that I don't want to deal with. And that is what you see sometimes in your lives, is it not? That somebody has a car crash, or somebody has a heart attack, or somebody gets divorced, and they completely change because that was the final domino that knocked everything over. And this is something that we want you to look at in terms of your own incarnation. Do not look at your incarnation as something where you should accomplish things in your 20s and 30s and you should know everything by the time you're 40. No, the way it works is you come in with your weaknesses and your preferences and your passions, and in a differently conditioned culture, your passions would be much more encouraged than they generally are in your workaday world here. But because you will put your children into government provided education, instead of either educating your children yourselves or being willing to spend a bit more money on private tutors or whatever it is, you are getting a mass-produced psychology that is being controlled. And so you are not getting so much pleasure out of the life that you can get pleasure and fun and joy out of. Most of you don't start to crack under the pressure until you've been an adult for a couple of decades and you realize that you don't want to keep doing this, whatever this is. It might be being married to a person that's not suitable to you because you got married based on your parents' preferences. It may be that you're in a job that used to give you your ego prestige, but now that's not what you're interested in and that job is no longer satisfying you. Whatever it is, most of you really don't start waking up until you hit about 35 or 40 or 45. Now, as we said, in a society that is different from yours, where you look at your child and you look and say, what talents do they have? Oh, they're so creative that I'm going to put them in a creative stream, a creative school. I'm going to nurture their creativity, less worried about math, less worry about those technical subjects. This is an artist. I can see that this is an artist. Or this is a wild child. This is somebody who wants to climb trees and build forts and mud pies. And I'm going to let them do that and see where it takes them. They might end up being an environmental engineer of some kind. So what we want you to understand is that the limits and constraints of your consciousness here are not the same as the unlimited ideas and images and possibilities that you have when you are designing your life. It's simply completely different. But you don't remember. You don't remember this. What you have is a guidance system that gives you messages, a guidance system that says learn to play the violin, a guidance system that says we need to go to India, a guidance system that says let's go to cooking school in France, we want to become a chef. But you will then listen to your parents or your school teachers and they'll say, oh, no, you can't make a living doing that. You can't become an artist. You can't become a musician. You've got to have a proper job. Go to school first, go through the program, kill your creativity and do that as a hobby. It'll be much better. But your spirit is very powerful. And so it wins out. It always wins out. And in the end, even if you have lived a life of quiet desperation, in the end, spirit wins out and says, we're not learning anything more here. We're not expanding anything more here. We're going to go home. And you die because you have not given yourself permission to be joyful, to follow your passions, to educate and expand and grow yourself. You have conformed into a box that is soul destroying. Not literally, your soul will never be destroyed. But when you see people in their 50s or 40s or 60s and you see that they are imploding from sickness or sadness or depression or suicidal thinking or the mundaneness of your Western lives, that is what's happening. The conditioned programs are winning. the spirit is not getting the expansion that it wanted. It is not getting the joy that it loves. It is not getting the adventure that it loves. And so that life force is slowly, slowly dissipating. And when you have aging programs, such as you do in your society, which says that you should retire when you should strive for retirement, you should work as hard as you can for 40 years so that you've got all this money so that you can do nothing. This is also a detrimental program, because it is in living your life fully every single day, doing what you love as often as you can, even if you're doing something mundane that you don't particularly want to do. Let's say doing the dishes, they need to get done. Put your favorite music on and dance while you're doing the dishes. You are still doing the dishes, but you are raising your frequency. You are choosing joy, choosing joy, choosing joy. And we will tell you, the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets. So do not fear death. It is not real. It is merely the body being laid aside so that you can go into a new experience and a new opportunity to master whatever it is that you haven't yet mastered. But use this life that you have to engage with those things that you want to engage with, to let go of the fear, to let go of the judgments, to let go of the frustration, and to say, this is how I'm going to find joy today. It's a sunny day. I'm going to go and get some plants for my garden. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to make a basket for my sister who's never got time to make baskets. So I'm going to pick up some flowers for her too. And while I'm at the garden center, I'm going to stop off at that lovely tea shop, and I'm going to treat myself to a lovely cup of herb tea, and I'm going to take my Course in Miracles book and I'm going to read it for half an hour, and I'm going to just enjoy myself. You could be sitting at home watching the news on TV, or you could be enjoying yourself. You know which one we prescribe. So bring joy to your life. Don't worry about death. It is in living joyfully that your death will become less and less and less and less powerful a force. Even worrying about how other people die is thinking about death, and it is empowering death, and it is worrying about if it hurts, and it is worrying about if there's punishment, if there's fear, if what's it like to die. These are the ego's little ways of feeding the death paradigm. See yourself as an eternal spiritual being that chooses to exit at certain points, at times in dramatic ways. We have talked about some of the famous beings who have been assassinated using that particular exit form as a way to draw attention to their message and to keep it alive, because they then become these iconic bearers of that message, and they stay alive far longer than if they had stayed in the body. And the other thing is that at times in those pre-physical moments when you're designing your life with your guides and teachers, sometimes you say, I'll go in for 40 years, but that's enough. I don't want to stay longer. So let's design a dramatic exit for me at 40, because I'm not interested in staying longer. I've been in that place before, and it's kind of exhausting. So I'm just going to go for 40 years. Some people, some spirits will even say, I'll go in for 5 years. And that will finish me off. Thank you very much. That's where I'm going to do one little bit of work here, and I'm done. I need to come home. So we really want you to change your ideas about death. We really want you to reconsider how it contaminates your life. And of course, this being has written a book about that. Great Minds Speak to You is all about life after death, the dying process, and how consciousness continues on. It was before you were born, and it will be after you let go of this meat suit that is at times very challenging for you. So perhaps making your lives better, more joyful, is the way to avoid death. We will return shortly. All right, the sun is blasting through the skylight here. Move over a bit. Okay. I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to go over here. Okay, I'm I'm going to have a little sip of tea. So hopefully that answered your question. The next question is, where do humans originate from? Is Darwin theory correct in stating that we descend from apes? Very good question. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And what you witness in your physical incarnations is a seemingly singular timeline. Because of the way your sensory input devices are manufactured and made, you are seemingly following a singular line through history. But we want you to know that there are multiple manifestations of history. There are different times and places where certain things went another way and an entirely different experience is being had. So there is an experience where Hitler won the war and the world has continued on with that particular experience. So you are changing your experience all the time. You are evolving your body all the time by the thoughts that you hold. You are activating chemical pathways and neurological pathways and genetic information all the time by the thoughts and ideas and beliefs that you hold and how you express them. And you truly are unaware of the immense power that you have as human beings because you have been incorrectly taught. So your scientific method says you have all of this junk DNA that doesn't do anything. Well, there is no junk DNA. It is all designed to do something. But systematically, through generations of being shut down and terrorized and traumatized, which you have in your society, there are qualities that you cannot access that are accessed through your genetics that must be activated by your thought processes. And so the experience that this being went through with her Kundalini awakening was an experience such as that. A lot of her DNA was kicked into gear because of the mental training program that she undertook. And so the frequency environment of her physiological body was very different than the frequency environment of her family, for example. And so she is now seeming to have abilities and rise above that of her family, which can cause its own issues for the being who is rising above the template that the family has set. But you come into a family based on the frequency that you are holding based on other incarnations. And so you will repeat. And this is why a lot of incarnations are pretty boring, because you haven't changed your mind. You haven't connected to a source that is truly guiding you. You may be following the mundane rules of your culture and society for a long time, but eventually there will be an incarnation where that you break through that glass ceiling, because it is a sort of a glass ceiling, not always easy to see. Most of you are laboring under a glass ceiling. Perhaps that is your parents' belief system. Perhaps your parents were very successful business people and you have felt that you have to be a very successful business person. Now, you may not see that as a glass ceiling. You may think, oh, that was very good. I had very successful parents. But you may have all kinds of prejudices and limitations that prevent you from a different kind of expansion, because the thought of relaxation or the thought of creativity or the thought of breaking out of that is a terrifying idea to you. So for you in your incarnation, children of a very, very successful business person, you may be feeling forced into becoming that yourself, but there may be a part of you that wants a different experience. Your parents may see that as a devolution, but spirit doesn't see it as a devolution. It sees it as another opportunity for a valid experience. So in terms of this timeline, which we will speak about now, because that's the one that you're referring to, even though you don't necessarily understand that there are a lot of different timelines, a lot of different probable realities. You even have different probable realities yourselves. These are not the only lifetimes you are living. You are living other lifetimes, but you are not privy to that information because it would be too confusing. But all of that information is being uploaded into the hard drive of the greater mind of God, if you will, and all experiences are being collated and integrated and added to the mix. And so there is a constant state of consciousness expansion happening. So in your timeline, no, there are natural evolutionary changes that occur over time, but in generally speaking, your human race has been genetically engineered by much more evolved, much more elevated and educated beings. And you are a little bit like an ant farm in that sense, where you are being observed. You were seeded, different races were seeded in different places, in different environments, were given some information here, some information there. And you will recall in many of your mythologies that the gods dispensed information to the ordinary humans. And so occasionally the experimenters would bring forth information and give it to specific human groups and then see what they did with it. Now, this is something that is really against your belief systems right now. You have not been taught about this, but that is actually what has happened on Earth. And this is why you have so many extraterrestrial influences and beings that are incredibly curious about how you are going to go through this galactic escalation and consciousness evolution that is happening in a relatively short time. Now, this increasing frequency has been getting more and more and more since about the 1940s or 50s. The 1960s, the revolution that was happening there, the love revolution, was the beginning phases of the young people beginning to see that they didn't want to live the way society had prescribed for them. There was a wave of breaking for freedom, and then there was a counter response from society to try and get things back in order. And there have been waves and waves. And what's happening now is that the frequencies are so powerful now, because they have been steadily increasing since the 1950s or so, that there is no force that is going to be strong enough to stop you all evolving into the next level that you are destined to evolve into. You want to know what that is. It is a consciousness shift towards love. That is the transformation that you are going through. And when you look at your history, your linear history in this timeline, you can see that there are oppressive governing systems that have constantly been taking the wealth away from the hardworking people. They have been keeping it in their coffers. They have been punishing, inducing wars, then setting up urbanization, industrialization, education systems to make good workers. There is an ongoing oppressive regime that is preventing people from reaching their potential. And that has been an ongoing system of control and repression and fear-mongering. But that is a time that you will all look back on as the Dark Ages. You will look back on this last 2,000 years as the Dark Ages, and the information that I have been bringing through and that you have been witness to in some of your religions and some of your enlightened beings bringing forth information. That information has been coming through constantly, through different vehicles, through different people, so that you always have access to it, and so that you always have the ability to choose it if you encounter it. So this is one of the principles of the idea of sharing the word of God for some of your religions, that if they give you the opportunity and you say no, then you have chosen your path. You had the chance to say yes, but you have said no. So this is really what's going on here. And your 3D world, the bodies, the genetic programming, the evolution, the society, the people, the governments, the education system, these are all in the battleground. They are all in the physical material world of separation, and they are all valid experiences to have. You come and go, you come and go, you come and go, you get new bodies, you try new roles, you go through similar families, you'll come in together with a group of beings, and you'll decide that you're all going to travel through this evolutionary journey together. Once again, you sort of travel in packs. It is all okay, and it is all valid. It just does not need to be so uncomfortable, and it does not need to be so painful, and that particular form of learning is coming to an end. So for those that choose the battleground, for those that choose fear, for those that choose unloving thoughts and beliefs and ideas about themselves and other beings, are going to get to continue on in that vein, because they're choosing to. There's definitely enough information out there for them to have made other choices if they so desired. And then there are others of you that are going to make that leap into a fifth dimensional society, where you will seem to leave behind the wars and the famines and the degradation. You may not be witness to another Earth. You may be witness to another Earth, but your life will get better and better and better and better, and you will seem to be on a planet that is getting better and better and better and better, because birds of a feather flock together, energetically as well as in 3D world. So you are going to be around people of a like mind, a like frequency to you. And so this is something that's very important to remember when you are surrounded by angry or nasty or ungenerous people. You are never surrounded by beings who are different than you. You have merely hidden things from yourself. So if you are surrounded by what you consider less evolved people, just take that under advisement that you are in fact in their company, because there's something in you that is a match. So evolution itself is, physical evolution is driven by consciousness evolution. So you are actually going to see people manifesting different physiological and physical and psychological assets because they've changed their consciousness. So it is all mind. The physical evolution of your society is based on what you believe to be true about yourself and about the world. So if you don't like what you're seeing, and you don't like what you're feeling, and you don't like what you're experiencing, go inside your own consciousness and ask, where am I able to make myself more loving to myself and or others? Where am I able to bring more joy to myself? Where am I able to relax a bit and get into a more trusting place so that I'm not on the edge of my seat in fight or flight all the time? Just take a pill and relax and see what happens to your physical body. So we know that that doesn't answer your question perfectly, because we are bringing extra information in, but you are not driven by the physical. The physical is driven by you. Always remember that. We will return shortly. Okay. I'm going to have a little sip of my tea. Okay, this is a good one. Oh, I'm going to take a little breath here. Whew. Question for next live streaming. How can dogs get cancer? Our dog has been diagnosed with cancer at the vet yesterday and will be operated on the following Friday. Our family's former dog died of cancer about 30 years ago. It may not be the mind of the dog. It may not be the mind of the dog who does the thinking, rather that they might take the sickness from their owners. Okay, this is a principle that a friend of mine was talking about actually the other day. Let's see what Ananda has to say about pets and their sicknesses. We're with you again, dear ones. One of the ways that you assist yourself in these incarnations is that you bring beloved pets into your life to show you things that you could not or will not or are unable to learn from humans or from your own experiences. Now, pets are not separate from you in the sense of having a separate soul. They are a part of your oversoul. They are an aspect of yourself that you assign to yourself at certain points in your life to give you assistance through challenging times. Sometimes you will assign yourself a pet as a companion when designing your blueprint because you know that your partner is going to pass away at a certain time and you think, well, this would be very good for me to have a cat or a dog or a horse. So I'm going to bring that opportunity to me a couple of years before I lose my partner because that is going to soften the blow. That is one way that you bring pets into your life. You will use them to soften the blow. Another way that you will use a pet is to say, I have a tendency to be hard-hearted, or I have a tendency to be short-tempered. I have a tendency to be flighty and inconsistent. I think a pet will be very helpful for me in learning to be more responsible, in learning to be more loving, in learning to be kinder. And when you see a pet being abused by somebody, because sometimes you see people who have animals and they are not kind to them in your world, some of those animals have come to that person in an effort to teach them kindness, in an effort to give them an opportunity to rise up above their brutality or above their cruelty or above their fear, because a lot of people who are cruel to animals are very fearful. And so this is a very good reason for you not to judge somebody who you see being cruel to animals, because they are actually being helped by the animal. They are being given an opportunity by the animal to potentially become better people. And sometimes a person who is cruel to animals will, in fact, over a period of time, come to know the animals, and over time will in fact become more loving. Even though they may not become super loving, they will actually develop a relationship with the creature, and love will begin to seep into their hardened hearts. So what about sicknesses? Well, we have again this idea of the ultimate idea behind it, and what's called a spiritual paradox, where two things can be true at once. You have the physiological way in which you are feeding and vaccinating and at times impinging upon the freedom of your animals. Some animals suffer greatly at the hands of humans, not because the humans are being cruel, but because the humans are being overly smothering. And they are pumping them full of vaccinations and drugs, and they are giving them unnatural foods, even though they may be paying a fortune for a formulated hard pet food, when in actual fact that animal would be better served by eating some fresh meat of some kind. Sometimes people do not let their animals out and run free at all. They will keep their cats inside for fear of the cats eating birds, or for fear of the cats getting run over, or for fear of coyotes getting the cats. And the animals will in fact be suffering and made to be neurotic by the actions of the humans because they are too controlling and too fearful. And their fear is going to infect the animals, not because the person is intentionally doing so, but the animal is giving you a heads up that something in the family is unhealthy. And this is often what the cancers are. It is that your ideas about health may be unhealthy. So for example, if you're overly vaccinating your animals, you are in a constant state of fear that they are going to die or get sick. And that constant state of fear that they are going to die or get sick is what the actual problem is. It is not anything outside of your consciousness. So the pet in getting cancer is reflecting your anxiety and fear about death. And if you have anxiety and fear about death and it's powered by strong emotion, guess what you're going to create? You're going to create that thing. So if your pets are repeatedly getting sick, we want you to address the food you're feeding them. We want you to address the medications that you are giving them. And we also want you to address the general frequency of the family in which you find yourself. Is it a fearful and controlling family? Is it a neurotic family? Is the pet the victim of a lot of rules? Is the pet struggling with not being allowed to ever be a dog, for example? So, for example, in your society, dogs are not allowed to be pack animals. They are often isolated, alone, and yet you do not allow them to be, at times, your true pack. You will go away and leave them, or you will ask them to stop barking when they are trying to tell you something. Our dear one is going through this with her Delphi dog. She has had some barking issues with Delphi dog, and she realizes that Delphi barks at her when she's confused, when she's getting mixed messages from our dear one. She yells at her and tells her about it. Initially, our dear one would yell back at her and tell her not to do that. But she realized that there were circumstances that were repeating themselves. And so she went inside and thought, okay, what's going on here? In this circumstance, I did not praise Delphi for something when she wanted praise for something, or I'm asking her to do two things. I'm asking her to stay and I'm asking her to come. I'm asking her to protect me and I'm asking her not to bark at strange people. And so the dog is in fact teaching our dear one to be much clearer and more consistent in her communication through barking. Whereas if this awareness was not there, the dog could be just trained out of barking rather than getting a lesson to the human. So whatever animals you have in your presence, begin to ask yourself, what are they teaching me to do? Or what are they asking of me? Are they asking you to go outside more? Are they asking you to be more affectionate? Are they asking you to eat more healthily? Ask yourself what they are asking of you and understand that they are not you. They are a part of your oversoul that has come in to offer a service to you of companionship, of teaching, of learning, of love. We will return shortly. All right. Okay, let me just plug this guy in here. Just let me have a sip of my tea. Lately, I am having a somewhat difficult time reading through the daily lessons and the commentary. By difficult time, I mean that I am overcome with love and loving thoughts and start heavy-duty crying, etc. Also, throughout the day, I experience moments of tremendous love. Can Jesus speak on this? Although I know my forgiveness work is manifesting, I'm wondering about it because everywhere I hear about the shadows coming out, etc. And although I still see the same world and still have challenges, I seem to be experiencing bliss and wholeness, and so I hope it doesn't hit me all at once. Okay. You figure the shadows are building up. I have, this is a bit of a long question, but it's interesting, so I'm going to read it. I also have had a few accidents, quote unquote, which healed at unbelievable speed. I burned my thumb and a 1.5-inch bubble quickly appeared, sure to be at least a week in healing. And 2 days later, there was absolutely nothing there. I only noticed because I remembered I had burned myself and looked at it. To my amazement, there was nothing there. Next, I was going upstairs to take a nap and I tripped on the stairs and fell with both legs on my shins. It was in slow motion. I felt the pain of the body, but at the same time, it did not affect me. In the split second, I felt a buildup of energy in the body and had to decide what to do. Out of compassion, I allowed the body to release the energy and I started crying, even though I didn't feel I needed to as far as the pain was concerned. I felt the body needed to release. My shins in 4 places were already where purple marks and skin was scraped off. Long story short, then I went for a nap with throbbing legs. I woke up 2 hours later and there was nothing. No redness, no pain, no throbbing, no bruising. It was like it had never happened. I only had skin scraped on one spot, nothing really like when you peel from a sunburn. My question is, would Jesus or Ananda speak on these experiences? Am I just thinking the situation is worse than it really is and the healing time is perfectly normal? Or is it the witness to forgiveness work and clarification of the mind? What is going on? And can we all expect more of these kinds of experiences as the energy shift? Very good question. Let's see what Jesus has to say. Oh, I've got sun coming all at me in all different places here. Oh, well, I look a bit demonic, but hang on. No, it's not going to make any difference. That's going to make some difference. Okay. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And this is indeed what forgiveness work does in the physical body. This is exactly what a miracle is. A miracle is a healing that is far quicker in time than should be allowed according to the laws of physics that you all live by. This being went through a similar experience when she broke her foot, falling down an 18-foot ladder and breaking off the heel bone of her foot, her Achilles tendon, springing up halfway up her leg into her calf. All of you are thinking, oh my goodness, that must have hurt. It didn't hurt. She had surgery, she had months of recuperation, and no pain at all throughout that whole experience. And that was a direct result of the intense forgiveness practice that she has had and continues to have. Now, this does not mean that you don't hurt your toe when you stub it. It does not mean necessarily these things, but as you go through your evolutionary journey of forgiveness process, you are going to have fewer and fewer need. You're going to have less and less need for the punishments that the unconscious guilt that you possess creates. So when you hold resentments and hold anger and hold judgments against others, you are holding a frequency that is one of injury, one of attack, one of less than love. And so you will throughout your life encounter car accidents, falling downstairs, tripping on things. As you do your forgiveness work, you are literally jumping timelines. You are literally jumping from a life where you would perhaps fall downstairs and break your leg to a lifetime where you almost fall downstairs and you see that it could have been very, very bad, but it didn't happen. Now, there's no double-blind placebo test that you can do on this. You can't prove that this is what's happening, but that is indeed what's happening. Now, you will ask, why did the accident happen in the first place? Well, the accident happened in the first place because there were certain positive requirements of that accident. So, for example, with our dear one's accident, quote unquote, the falling down of the ladder, She ignored some intuition about that ladder, and so she's very particular now. When she gets intuition, she learned very, very clearly that you should listen to your intuition. It also forced her to stop doing for a while, and that was a very, very important experience for her to have. But she didn't need to be in excruciating pain to have that experience. The break did that. She then had to not move for about 4 to 6 months. And that was something that was very important for her to see. In that 4 to 6 months, she went through a big transformative process. But pain was not required for that. Suffering was not required for that. So some of these things are not unnecessary. Now, we know that that's a double negative. But if you are walking along the beach on slippery rocks and you step out of presence for a moment and you start thinking about that person who annoys you, and suddenly you trip and fall and you fall over, that is not God punishing you for having that thought. It is a lack of presence. You weren't actually paying attention to where your feet were going. So it's a simple cause and effect. I stepped out of the present moment. I was ruminating on a problem that's not here on this slippery rock, that's somewhere else, and I stopped negotiating the landscape in which I find myself, and so I had an accident. This is how many of your quote unquote accidents happen. They aren't accidents. They are a direct result of you stepping away from the present moment. You are ruminating on something that's not here, from the past or the future. So in any circumstance, there are a multiplicity of affecting systems at play, whether it's you leaving presence and not paying attention to where your feet are going, whether it's an accident that's going to bring you some benefit, but the forgiveness work that you've done is reducing the severity of it. But in terms of the healing, yes, as you increase your frequency, as you do your forgiveness work, as you work through these things, there will be areas of your bodily functions that begin to shift and change. Remember what my teaching was on the earth plane. You can crucify me, but I will not die. I can remanufacture a body. That was not the story that was told, but that was the story that I was teaching. I had come to a place of such alignment with love that I was no longer beholden to the laws of physics of the 3D world. And any master, any spiritual master, will not be beholden to the laws of the 3D world. We do not want you to think that necessarily that you are a master, but we want you to think that we want you to understand that you are seeing benefits of your practice. Mastery does not come at one time. It comes through systematic application of truthful teachings. And this is really what we want to encourage all of you to do, even though you may still be frustrated with stubbing your toe, creatures eating your garden, someone banging into your car and making a mess of the side panel. We want you to see all of those things as learning opportunities, to see what comes up in you, to see what you have not yet dealt with, but also to envision health. Many of you in this society, when you think about getting old, envision decrepitude. We want you to envision incredible health. Use the power of your mind, use the power of this training program that you are involved in to envision that which you want more of. So even in this question, there is a fear-based undertone which says, if I'm seeing really good things, does that mean that the bad things are saving themselves up to hit me all at once? That would be a pessimistic view. We want you to change that, reframe that, and say, just because good things are happening to me does not mean the bad things are being saved up to catch me all in one fell swoop. That would be a little negativity that you are witnessing in your thinking processes, and something that you may want to have a look at. Do I think, oh, when good things come, it's not going to last, bad things are going to come? That would be a belief that you would want to begin to address, because that is going to manifest. Every time a good thing comes, if you believe that a bad thing is going to come right after it, then surely enough it will, and that belief will be strengthened because the universe reflects you. So remember, and we will say this in closing because we are coming to the end of this session, the world is a reflection of your consciousness, and your world is a reflection of your consciousness. Your relationships are there to show you what you need to work on. Your world is a collective consciousness co-creation. So the collective can only be affected by you doing your work. Your personal evolution can only be affected by you doing your work. You will not be carried along by others. You can be inspired by others. You can be encouraged by others, but you must do your own work. And we want you to know that the groundswell of expansion that is at play on your planet right now is supporting all of you to bring up, witness, accept, and let go of the things that are not working for you. So be gently vigilant in your life and ask yourself, where do I feel fear? Where do I feel frustration? Where do I feel anger? Where do I feel resentment? And what am I saying to myself when things go wrong? Oh, here we go again. Nothing ever goes my way. You want to catch that phrase when somebody bangs into your car. You want to catch that phrase when you burn the dinner one more time. Nothing ever goes right for me. You think, that is that is something that I need to look at here. I am not a victim of this world. I am the creator of it. This belief needs to be addressed now. So instead of saying nothing ever goes my way, you begin to say, everything always goes my way. I'm always getting exactly what I need at the right time. And you won't believe it at first, but it can be the mantra you use instead of the old belief that is deeply entrenched in the mind. So when things are manifesting in the physical, remember, they've been in your thought processes and mind and reinforced a lot for them to be coming into the physical world as manifestations of sickness or health or healing. So for the person who asked this question, your systematic practice of forgiveness is beginning to manifest in the world. You do not need to fear that your negatives are being saved for you. They are going to show up in your upsets. So love the miracle manifestations that are coming into your life and continue to pay attention to your frustrations and your angers and your judgments and your perfectionism, these kinds of things. They are all working in concert together, different facets, different aspects. The holistic being of you is being revealed to you. And so be grateful for those demonstrations of seemingly miraculous recoveries, seemingly painless occurrences that should, in your old belief system, be painful. You are seeing some physical, tangible results of that. And you will all see physical, tangible results based on the dedication with which you practice your forgiveness practice, based on the dedication with which you are increasingly loving to yourself, based on the dedication and the amount of time each day that you practice these teachings and these thoughts, beliefs, and ideas. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and we are always, always grateful that you come into these gatherings with us. We are your guides and teachers. There are many of us here on the side that are working with you together to bring you up to speed for the lovely transformations that are happening on your planet. You are beginning to see some turning of the tide in some of your systems. You're beginning to see grassroots revolutions of people taking their power back from the controlling mechanisms that have been at play on your planet. You are seeing some of the controlling mechanisms increasing the frequency with which they want to restrict you. And it is a foolish and it will be an unsuccessful attempt. But you must look at how willing you are to be controlled, how willing you are to do as you're told. Are you an independent, creative, evolving consciousness, or are you a trained puppet? ask yourself when you're doing things, am I doing this just because I've been taught to do this? Is this really what I want to do? Or am I really wanting to break free and express myself in a new way? It is never going to be easy or comfortable to break free of systematic conditioned training programs that have intentionally been designed to make you afraid. Remember, you are afraid of those systems because they are punishing and harsh systems. But be brave enough to do the internal work of seeing yourself, imagining yourself, envisioning yourself living the life that you want to lead in a place that you want to lead it. And know that if you keep doing the interior work of following your dreams and encouraging your passions and listening to that intuition and the guidance that you get in dreams and thoughts and ideas, that you will find your life changing substantially over time. We will speak to you again at another time. All right, lovelies. Whew. That's pretty good. Okay. Thank you for joining me today. I don't think I have any other news. We'll be doing another session in 2 weeks, which I think is Sunday the 30th. So those will be our 2 live streaming sessions. Yeah, that's it. I love you all. Bye. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.